All right. All right, we're glad everybody made it, survived Thanksgiving. Trust everybody had a good Thanksgiving. Sounded like everybody had a good time, so that's the deal. And thanks for everybody that's home watching. And we still have some travelers, I think, and some that are not here. So the that's always expected. Holidays, people visiting and traveling, and so we'll keep those people in prayer. We're glad to have Sam Banks back with us this morning, and
I'm glad to be back.
yeah,
Seat of honor.
yeah. Don't get any. Like I say, I know you warned Bob, but you don't get any ideas about any remotes we have does not working.
Yeah, I was looking for that.
Doesn't work TV, television, or anything. So all right. So we are in Ruth. You're going to do Ruth chapter 4, verses 9 through 17, and then Luke chapter 3, 23, and then he's going to do 31 and 32. Okay. So let's go ahead and offer a prayer, and then we will read Ruth 4, verse 9. Dear Father, we're again thankful, Lord, for all that you've done for us. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity we had this last week to stop and make a special effort to give you thanks. I pray that, Lord, all of our families would, in the midst of the family gathering and fellowship, that we will have taken time to focus on you, because we know this is the reason we are thankful. The families we have, and as wonderful as they are from you. We recognize they come from you, and so we again extend our thanks to you, and we ask, Lord, for your Holy Spirit today. Help us as we read together and study, that, Lord, that we would learn. Thank you in Jesus' name, amen. Verse 9, then Boaz announced to the elders and all the people, today you are witnesses that I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Mahlon.
Go ahead, because I don't count yet.
Okay, verse 10. Or Geneva,
Okay. Moreover, I have acquired Ruth the Moabitess, the widow of Mahlon, to be my wife, in order to raise up the name of the deceased on his inheritance, so that the name of the deceased may not be cut off from his brothers or from the court of his birthplace. You are witnesses today.
verse 11. Mom?
I can't find it in my Bible.
Okay.
It's in the front of the.
Then the elders and all the people
Near the
at the
front.
gate said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem.
So the offspring, through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman, may your family be like that of Perez, who Tamar bore of Judah.
So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son.
The woman said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel.
Now what's the verse?
May he also be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him.
Verse 16.
Or 16.
Want me to go ahead?
She's got it.
Okay,
You
what
got it?
verse now?
Chapter 4, verse 16.
15? Okay.
16.
16. And Noah took the child and laid it upon his her bosom and became the nursemaid, nurse for it.
17.
17.
No, she already, if you, 17?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. And the neighbor women gave him the name, saying, a son has been born to Naomi. So they named him Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David.
Okay, now we're going to jump to chapter 3, Luke 3. Luke 3, verse 23.
Oh my gosh.
If somebody has that. Go ahead. Yeah.
Me?
Yeah, go ahead. You got it?
And when he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age, being supposedly the son of Joseph, the son of Eli.
The son of Mathat, the
Thank you.
son of Levi, the son of Melchi, the son of Janai, the son of Joseph.
Okay. That was, what verse was that?
24.
Oh, okay. We're jumping to verse 31 now. Sam?
31, okay. The son of Meliah, the son of Minna, the son of Matthatha, the son of Nathan, the son of David.
Mike?
32.
The son of Jesse, the son of Obed, the son of Boaz, the son of Salmon, the son of Nation.
All right. So we're going to talk about some genealogy here in a little bit. In his introduction, he talks about grafting. And we all know, of course, grafting, what that's all about. Anybody that's done any grafting, especially around here, most of the time I've heard of grafting fruit trees, probably, but especially pecan trees. Take a cut out of an existing tree, then take a branch out of another tree, and basically, usually they do a notch, and then they stick that branch into that notch and doctor it up and fasten it, and eventually it becomes a part of that original tree. Now, I know, like I say, that's the thing. Usually, like I say, for certain purposes, I know for pecan trees, it's partly how a lot of times they got paper shell pecans, was when they would graft those trees. And because like I say, these trees here, like I say, native pecans, we know they're little bitty, but they were a lot of times, individuals around here would graft the paper shell in and to obtain their paper shell pecan. They do the same thing with fruit trees as well. And we realize the idea is, of course, that to achieve improvement, that's the idea.
I want to tell you that I have several native in my house yard, and Raymond tried to transplant several branches to one. None of those worked, but there's one branch came on that we have no. I said God transplanted that one himself. Because we did not, it was not anything we transplanted.
Yeah, it's a tricky process. Usually, a lot of times, like I said, you kind of got to know what you're doing. Usually, for people that are successful at it, like I say, they know. It takes some little TLC. So I was gonna say some TLC, a lot of TLC to get it done. So the whole idea is in the process is improvement. The improvement in the whole in the trees. We know that the Apostle Paul talks about grafting, and talking about tribe of Israel and how as Christians being grafted in. But he suggests here the genealogy of Jesus is a grafting in of sorts. The addition to the family tree yielded abundant blessings, and it continues to bless us today. So, I don't know that I ever thought about it that way, but like I say, thinking about Jesus being grafted into this family tree here. The book of Ruth, written during the period of the judges in Israel, a time when we see the history of the people's constant failure at keeping God's commandments. Ruth tells the story of a handful of people living in faithful obedience, and that was, of course, being her mother-in-law, Naomi, and this particularly we're going to think about and talk about Boaz half a bit. It culminates, the book of Ruth, like I say, we read just a while ago, culminates in a genealogy of David, King David. Now, we're, like I say, we think about these genealogies, and they're going to bring up here an issue with when we get over into the New Testament. We're going to see a genealogy that Matthew records for us. There's a genealogy that Luke records for us. Okay. Now, does anybody Bible scholars, what's the difference between Matthew's genealogy and Luke's genealogy?
One is the mother's side, one the father's side.
Right. Matthew traces Jesus' genealogy back from Mary. Luke traces genealogy of Jesus back from Joseph. Okay. So we'll see some differences, a little bit of differences in the beginning part of that genealogy, but then as you get down to so far back into his family tree, what you'll see, you notice is they converge. Okay. And that's going to be, so, yeah. So, but one of the questions that's not here, just kind of, so what is all this big business about genealogy, family tree? Wish Rhonda was here with us too. Or she, everybody knows that Mike O'Malley's, that Rhonda, okay, because we got more than one Rhonda here. I don't know if everybody realizes Rhonda O'Malley is a genealogy person. Mike's not laughing back there. Okay. You thought I was going to say something else, didn't you? Oh, okay.
Get her talking, she's good at talking genealogy.
Okay.
Michael, through our genealogy, we found out one president that is in our genealogy.
I bet you probably every family, if you dig hard enough, you're going to find some famous person. Whether it's a good person or a bad person.
You'll find both.
Yeah, or so usually it's some outlaws and some good guys, I'm sure, yeah. Rhonda, like I say, she really loves and just get with her, start talking some genealogy, and she has done some real extensive research into their family tree. And I don't know that everybody has realized this. I don't know that it was widely publicized, but she got to digging in her family tree and discovered that her and Renee are actually like 8th cousins, or cousins 8th removed, or happy. She dug far enough back to discover that her and Renee are actually distant cousins. They thought that was pretty cool, huh?
And she's related to a famous too.
Is that right? Oh, I didn't know.
If we go back far enough, we're all kids.
Yeah, exactly.
She's related to what?
Exactly.
What did she say?
Go back far enough, we're all
To the
related.
banks, I think.
To the famous.
Well, in fact, if you did, we didn't read all of the Ruth's account here, but yeah, because we stopped at verse 17, but I believe it is Ruth's account. No, I think it was Luke's account. We didn't read all of that whole family genealogy, but if you read that, all of Luke all the way back, you're going to see him take that genealogy. For our purposes, he stopped at the King David, Boaz, Salmon, and Nahshon. But if you continue to read on that genealogy, Luke takes it all the way back to Adam. If you go back and read that, he goes all the way back to Adam. So, and this is the thing we know logically, yeah, all of us, if we were able to go back far enough, we would all reach, because there's only two people, Adam and Eve. And then further on down the line, it got whittled, the whole population there got whittled down to, again, Noah and his wife. And that's the thing that Luke takes and shows it, where he gets it back to Noah and then back further on down through to Adam. So, what is all this business about? That's why I'm getting back to my question, genealogy. So what?
Well, it tells us we're all connected. for one thing.
Okay, well, it can help us show that we're all connected. But especially for today's lesson,
Birthright.
birthright.
Right, because they had to, he had to redeem, because of the widow. He had to redeem it to keep the family name alive. And, so.
Okay, so here's we know that the title of today's lesson is Jesus' ancestry. So what? Family tree, huh?
Proves the prophecy that Messiah would be the son of David.
Aha, there you go. All right. So I know that's the thing. There, if you especially get over to the Old Testament, we see there are some sections in the Old Testament where it gives us long lists of names and names and names and names, and so begat so and so, and we find those things pretty boring and everything. But what we discover is it is a documentation that proves, yes, Jesus fit, as you may think about, fit the bill to be the Messiah. Well, because prophecy did indicate he would be, the Messiah would be of the line of David. And here's the thing, as I mentioned a while ago, both Matthew and Luke show he comes down from the line of David from both his father and mother. Mary and Joseph both were descendants of King David. So he gets a double whammy. I think you would think about it in that way. No doubt. And this is the thing we know, that the nation of Israel, the people, the Jewish people, are really hold great importance. Genealogy is of great importance to them. Okay, for lots of reasons. Heritage, land, inheritance of land, but also that was the thing that they would be able to know the priestly line, who is who. That's the thing, they needed to know who's who, to be able to know who rightfully could serve as a priest or Levite in the worship of God. All right, so it also showed, the genealogy showed God's providence at work in King David's ancestors. God, in other words, God had a hand. God had a hand in this. So we go back to the story of Naomi, and him and Ruth come to Bethlehem as widows. We like to say, if you read all the chapters, basically read the whole book. It's only 4 chapters, but we know the story. How that Naomi lost her husband and 2 sons within a short period of time. And so therefore she's now left with uncertain future. But she had a plan, like I said, as they make their way back to Bethlehem, she has a plan on how to secure a future, if you want to think about it. And that plan involved Boaz, which was next of kin, but we find out from you read the book of Ruth, he was not actually the next of kin. There was another person that was even closer. Boaz had a plan, and he wasted no time putting that plan into action. And that plan involved, like I say, as we get into starting in verse 9, chapter 4, that was to redeem Naomi's land holdings and to marry Ruth. So the plan, that was the thing. The plan was he was going to go to the next of kin, meet there in the city gate, because in the city gates was where all the legal judge, I think if you want to think about court hearings and legal stuff happened at the city gate. So that therefore we find all those important leaders there at the city gate. And he approaches this next of kin and says, okay, we know that Naomi lost her husband. She's back here. Now you've got the opportunity as the next of kin to buy her land. And the next of kin says, yeah, well, sure, I'll be glad to do that. But then he says, oh, by the way, when you do that, when you buy that land, you also comes with the land comes your future wife, Ruth. That's when he says, puts on the brakes and says, whoa, no, can't do that. And Boaz is like, well, okay, if you can't, I'm the next in line. I would be glad to take her off your hands, if you want to think about it in that respect. And he's like, great, wonderful. And that's when we see in the scriptures, and it's brought out about that's the custom of the day, that he's like, all right, all you city leaders, you are all witnesses to what just transpired. He's passed up the opportunity to buy this land and take Ruth. I'm going to gladly do that. And what they would do then was, in other words, instead of signing on the dotted line like the contract, he takes off his sandal, hands it to him, and that was evidence. That was kind of the documentation. That's it. Binding legal binding contract. The exchange of a sandal. Go figure. I don't know, but that's what happened. So that's where we in verse 9 he talks about where he come in at. He talks about you guys, witnessed, and we see the elders of the people say today. He says you're witnesses. What I have done, I bought the land. I'm taking Ruth, and we're going to see verse 11 where they indicate, yes, we are witnesses to this transaction. Now, as he makes a point here that this was actually more of a lease. They didn't actually buy the land; it was more of a lease, because the way that the Israeli Jewish laws worked was that the land would return to the seller's family when they could afford to redeem it, or the year of Jubilee, whichever came first. And that's the thing. You can always count on every 50th year of Jubilee, all this land that you supposedly bought actually automatically reverted back to the original owner. Kind of a strange. One of the reasons they did that was to ensure that all these land holdings stayed within the family. That was the whole idea. And like I said, I can think of some individuals around this area, some farmers around this area, that when it came to their farms, it was always a big deal. That, like I say, the one individual I always think about, and he talked about, he had like 4 children, and he as he shared with me, when I go down, he says, when I go, I'm going to make my will and make it out. He said, I'm not going to just automatically say it's going to go to the oldest son, but he said, over time, I'm going to see which child of mine would be faithful to keep his wishes, and that was to keep the farm in the family. So that was his point. It was because he didn't know that he could trust all his children. He wanted to make sure he could get it into the hands of the child that he could trust would keep the land in the family. And which I think it did wind up going to the oldest. The oldest was his son. In the Jewish, it wasn't just the family thing; it was the government thing. This thing of the year of Jubilee, that was the Israeli government thing. It was actually a God thing. To keep this within the family. So in part of this process, in the law, they had this concept called the guardian redeemer, the kinsman redeemer. This was, of course, Boaz. Was one of them. There was another relative, was the one, but it's like Boaz also was considered, what became considered the guardian or the kinsman redeemer. Now, you have to think about connections between Old Testament and New Testament. It is not by any accident or consequence that we see this title Redeemer on there. Okay? Jesus is our Redeemer. Okay? So, connect the dots. In other words, it shouldn't be too hard for us to connect the dots.
Yep.
Boaz.
The names of Jesus.
Yes. Boaz is the Redeemer, restoring that inheritance back to the rightful owner. Okay? Jesus does the same thing, except with us. Okay. Usually from father to son. There's redemption usually happened from father to son, but there was precedence for a woman holding land. They took into account situations like Naomi's could come up. Husband and sons all gone. Now, she's the one left in control, a woman. And the law provided a way for her to be able to take care of that. Okay, so Boaz, like I said, we see him come in and he, as they point out, acted with integrity. We see his actions, and that's the thing is, he definitely is a man of integrity. He did not lie, cheat, or steal. He went through all the right, proper procedures to make this happen, and to the way it should be, that should have been the rightful outcome. We don't see any greedy, ulterior motives on his part. He just knows that Naomi needs to be taken care of, and he's thinking about her, and that he does the right thing so that will happen. Now, part of, like I say, we see Ruth comes into the family tree here, and she is a Moabite. And normally the Moabites and the Israelis are at odds with each other. God had even, as I mentioned, Deuteronomy 23:3, God had even barred them from being grafted into Israel. But we find her in Jesus' family tree. Okay. She's not the only foreigner, and she's not the only woman that winds up in Jesus' genealogy, his family tree. Who's the other one? Rahab. Okay. Very interesting that as they make a point that part of the reason and why they're specifically named is to an emphasis that Jesus was not just for the Jews, but for all people. Okay? So, the firstborn child, to Boaz and Ruth, would be raised as Mahlon's child. Okay. So, like I said, him to practical ways as believers we can honor the dead appropriately. Like I say, because they're making reference to the dead, which would have been Naomi's husband and her 2 sons. But today, for us, what are some practical ways we can honor, as believers, we can honor the dead appropriately?
Their funeral.
A funeral, okay? Huh? Okay.
We have Memorial Day we celebrate every year.
Okay, Memorial Day, we take a day in our calendar and specifically for a day to do that, and we do some very practical things.
We always try to take flowers out.
Flowers?
On her birthdays,
Anniversaries.
on her birthday and
Okay.
anniversary. But my parents are together, so out of the posts, they put them like on top of one another. So they're right there together. So on their anniversary, we take them flowers, and on both their birthdays.
Okay. And just an interesting tidbit here, and I want to get too far off base here. Anybody know the significance of if you ever go, like say, I don't ever get to go out to the National Cemetery very often, whatever, but there's, in our cash cemetery, there are, of course, obviously are some veterans markers there. Anybody know the significance? Anybody never noticed coins on those?
It's how the person who brought the coin was associated with them.
Right.
Whether they actually served with them or
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
some direct connection.
Memory.
So it could either be a penny, a nickel, quarter. The higher the denomination of the coin was, that denotes, that connection. So, like say, I think if it's a quarter, if somebody, and I know the ones out here, my good friend, friend from Iowa, Andy McReynolds, they actually glued the coin to the stone, so it's there. You can't,
Oh, wow.
so it won't get lost or anything. I believe like a quarter denotes where those 2 individuals actually served together in combat.
I guess.
They just wasn't in the same unit. They actually served together in war, in combat. So the higher the denomination indicates the closer and closer connection you have with that individual. So next time if you go out and you see coins on the, that's what that's all about. It shows that person's that put those coins there, their significance of whether they served in the same unit or whatever, how, like I say, the more connection, the more whatever,
Is that
the
family
higher
members
the-
that do that?
Hmm?
Is that family members that does that, or is that?
No, there were individuals out here that were, like say, the McReynolds that was buried out there at Cache Cemetery. I think it was I was a commanding officer, I think, that puts coins out on this one out here. It wasn't a family member, it was a commanding officer. I think that this guy was in his unit and they served together, and the commanding officer put those coins on that stone out there. Anyway, flowers,
Headstones.
the headstone itself. Like I say, it's very, Renee thinks I'm really weird to go to cemeteries and go through and just take a round and walk around and take a look. There's all kinds of very interesting things that people will leave behind out there.
Memories. You go out there and walk around, the whole cemetery is full of your memories.
Yeah,
When you're my age,
yeah.
My son
as well as family.
My son actually has the bullet casing they fire off
Oh,
for the
mhm,
military.
yeah. Mhm.
And he had found as many of those as he could. And he put them in a like a glass box with the obituary that was in the paper for my father. And China minted those bullets in there
Mm-hmm.
with it. It's really pretty,
Yeah.
the way he did it.
Do some cultures, they'll just, if they visit, they just leave a stone on there? And what is that? Is that just,
Leave a stone?
yeah, leave a stone on it, stone. I'm thinking something like Jewish
Yeah, I
cemeteries and stuff
I
like
think
that.
so too. I think
Yeah,
so.
I
maybe.
don't know what that's about.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
But, like I say, some of those things, like I say, get personal, and you kind of have to ask. If you know the person, can ask some questions, and so
Yeah.
I can't remember who it is. Somebody that's over in that south section, and it was Nichols. So what are this? That's why that they stayed out there. I guess we got enough superstitious people that they leave that stuff alone, whatever. But it was like just a whole row of nickels all around the base. So I finally found out, and come to find out, what was the significance of all those nickels on that tombstone, and it was because that person was loved the slot machines at the casino.
Oh, wow.
They were making sure they had enough nickels for the slot machine.
Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness. That's cute.
Okay, anyway, some things, like I say, to honor the dead, when you talk the funeral. So I think for a believer, as believers, appropriately, we definitely, I think, in the funeral we should share some scriptures. We should probably sing some, play some music like Amazing Grace and some of those kinds of songs. I think, as opposed to flip that coin, and I have been to some services where it wasn't any religious music played, and one service in particular that some of the guys decided to get up and tell some stories about the deceased person that were, let's just say, was pretty colorful. And yeah, I will say inappropriate. Yeah, okay. We definitely, as Christians, know, I think we know probably how to honor those people appropriately. And we definitely could see that chasm between believers and unbelievers. Some of the things we do versus some of the things that, like say, for us, would be just like, I will just say that a couple of times I've been abhorred at some of the things that were done and said at some of these events that were just like, why, of all times and places, at the funeral, that they would do some things like that.
I was at a funeral when I was a kid, I can remember it. And when the preacher paused for prayer, all the men that were there, 5 or 6 of them, broke open bottles right there in the funeral home.
Yeah.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
But that's what he wanted, No, that's wrong.
Irish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it? I think Jeff Foxworthy once said, you know you're a redneck when at your mother's funeral you hear behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, moving right along.
John, I did find something on that. It says during the times in the Temple of Jerusalem, Jewish priests. Jewish tradition of leaving stones or pebbles on a grave is an ancient one, and its origins are unclear. It is custom or tradition rather than a commandment, and over time, many interpretations have been offered for this practice. And then down here, that stones last longer than flowers. Flowers, although beautiful, will eventually die. A stone will not die and can symbolize the permanence of memory and legacy.
No,
I know it went back
so
way back
I
to
thought
the
it was,
Jewish
yeah.
belief, but I didn't.
So just an
FYI.
indication I was there. I came and I was there.
Yes.
All right. So, like I said, the elders, like I say, indicate, okay, we're witnesses. May the Lord make the woman like Rachel and Leah, who built up the family of Israel, and be famous in Bethlehem. They say the people pronounce blessing on Boaz and his new household, focusing on Ruth, and in essence, if you think about it, making Boaz like Jacob, who was the husband of Rachel and Leah. Blessings for wealth and a good name. And then he makes mention here how Ruth was a woman. She was a woman of great character, and we know that because it was like, here's her mother-in-law, and she's a foreigner, and her mother-in-law is encouraging her to go back home to your people. Ruth's like, no, I love you, and I'm going to go. And that's where the famous, we see it quoted a lot in weddings, but it actually was from mother-in-law, from daughter-in-law to mother-in-law. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you lodge, I will lodge. Wherever you die, I will die. Wherever you are buried, I will be buried. That's actually used at weddings.
Your people will be my people.
Yeah, your people will be my people. What responsibilities do witnesses today have toward newlyweds? None. I don't know. Anybody thought about it? You have, as a witness to a wedding, did you have a responsibility?
Towards newlyweds?
Yeah. Especially best man and maid of honor. What responsibilities do they, especially them, do they have to the newlywed couple?
To make sure things go smoothly.
Make sure things go smoothly. Okay.
Well, make sure her hair is right and her makeup is right. And the man makes sure the tuxes are done. And
Okay.
Have the rings.
all the rings, yeah,
What's part of the legal document that they sign
yeah.
to verify as a non-associated person?
Make
To
sure
that
the
event
rings are on
that
the
it actually
pillow.
happened.
Yeah.
Binding document, really.
Okay. To verify this is all legitimate, which don't get me off on that whole process, but to me it's a joke. But anyway, yeah, I mean, because I always thought that whenever that marriage license made it back to the courthouse, they made sure they checked things out. Yeah. I'll just tell for a favor to a couple, I was going to be having to go down there and they were going to start off on their honeymoon, and so I was like, yeah, I'll take it by there for you. So I assumed, because they always said on there, it talks about, you know, they would return the marriage license back to you within so many days. That was the idea, was they would get the marriage license, and so that the courthouse people, the court clerk, could check it all out, making sure everything's good, especially because on there, that used to be on there on a little box, like I had to put in there, my credentials are recorded on book 3, page 463. So the idea would be that they could pull book 3, go to page 463, yep, there's my signature right there. And they could verify, yep, John Webb, who is a recognized legal officiant, did the job. So I take the marriage license in, and I was going to leave it with them, and they're like, no, hang on just a second. The girl takes it, the notary, she notarizes it. She throws it on the she throws it on the copier machine to make a photocopy. That was for them, and then she goes, "Congratulations," and hands the marriage license back to me. And I'm like, "Oh, it wasn't me. This is just for well, this is a favor to some friends. Well, tell them congratulations for us. Goodbye."
Yep.
That was it. They notarized it. They made a photocopy of it. Here, there you go. Thank you.
You don't have to pay a
Congratulations.
fee?
Huh?
You don't have to pay a fee?
No, they've already paid for the marriage license. I'm thinking, where's the checking at? Where you look things up and make sure that John Webb was even a real guy.
That's why you can get ordained on the computer now.
Exactly.
Because you
But
don't have to
They
fill out-
didn't look at anything.
I know.
And handed the marriage license back to me and said, congratulations. I'm thinking, you know what, anybody, I could go out here and just find, or even, not even find some people, just forward some names on there.
Dang.
Here, okay, thanks, you're married.
You don't even have to have a marriage license, you just move in together.
Yeah, yeah,
You're right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
okay, respond.
That's awful. But we don't propose any of those things.
No,
Yeah.
I do not recommend,
Disclaimers.
we do not
Don't do any
recommend
of
whatever.
that.
Whenever I was in school, we were told that yeah, really to be married, the legal system, all they really care about as far as you getting married is signatures on that page. That's all they really care about. Now, however, like say the judges, because they talk about justice of the peace and all of that, they really encourage people to have some type of ceremony. They encourage it. But bottom line is, to really be legally married in the state of Oklahoma, all that really matters and that they really care about is signatures are on that page. You do not have to have any kind of a wedding ceremony.
I heard they don't even do it in the courthouse anymore.
They stopped that. Yes, they have stopped.
When? During COVID?
This last year.
Why?
This last year. And in fact,
Why?
I'd say,
I don't hear why, but.
I think because they think they've decided they're too busy. I think it's why they do.
Oh,
And they really are. But oh, and here's the other thing. That marriage license, had the little corner, bottom left-hand corner. My credentials are located book 3, page 463. That little box has disappeared.
Huh.
Now,
Was that for the minister that married them? or-
yeah, my part of it would be where I could put on there and indicate on there, book 3, page 463 is where my credentials are located at. That little box has disappeared off the marriage license altogether.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
Dang.
responsibilities. No, let's say anything about it. Responsibility. A young couple gets married. As a witness, we have responsibilities to them. Well, I don't think we think about it too much, but it's like, these are two people that they
Is a formal
even though
wedding.
being married is a happy time.
Formal wedding.
Yeah. Even though, like say, getting married is a happy time, it's a stressful time. It's a time of adjustment. And who do these people have to help them navigate through all of that? Hopefully it's us, as witnesses. I'm sure there's probably never been a couple that have, just never had a problem after getting married. Okay, didn't think so. All right. All right, so kids. Now, next thing you know, of course, how can faithful people avoid? Where's my other question at? Okay. Well, one of the questions I had was, in what ways are children blessing to our communities? How can faithful people avoid the trap of valuing parenthood over the option of having no children? We're almost out of time, right?
I'm not sure I understand that. How can faithful people avoid the trap of value?
Well, God, in the Bible says children are a blessing, so you're missing out on a blessing.
Okay.
How can they avoid?
So the implication of the question is, do we have a tendency to look favor families that have kids versus a couple that decide, you know what, we don't want children.
Some of them can't have children,
Some of them can't,
some of them want children now.
okay?
I never think of it when we're together.
Some couples have children that shouldn't have children.
Right?
A lot
Yeah.
of them, a lot of them.
Okay. I mean, as a church or in Christianity, is there a bias?
Well, some religions, the only way to heaven is to have X amount of kids,
Well, yeah.
or, yeah.
I don't think it's a blessing to have children
Right.
myself, but it is.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're wanting us to think about being mindful. What about those couples that decide we don't want to have kids?
That's their prerogative.
I never
And-
would have had children.
And the question is, how do we keep from looking down on those people? That's really the bottom line of the question is, how do we avoid looking down on people like that decide, you know what, we don't want children?
I didn't.
Some of them
No,
don't.
but I think a lot of them that have children shouldn't have had.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
That's other people's opinions that you should have children. And if they look down on people who don't have children, that's really none of their business.
Oh,
Right.
It's a matter of choice.
and like I said, a lot of them shouldn't have had children because they don't raise them up properly.
That's true.
All right. Well, next week, 2 Samuel 7.